Another example. This is before a Dave Matthews concert, right before Dave Matthews comes out on stage. Let's take a look. Trust me, these people, they just are insane out of the brain. Here we go. Okay, so you get the idea. There's lots of examples we could pull from. One that we saw this week was the DCC convention, where Obama was coming out on stage at the end of the convention, and I mean, the place, in Vesco Field was just rocking with 60 or 70,000 people. It's like at the concert, you think Jesus Christ, the Savior's walking on the stage. Oh, it's Dave Matthews. Oh, it's Obama. Oh, it's Tiger. Now, I'm not criticizing these things. I'm really not. I love this kind of thing. But then we come into church, and our image is that sacred, somber, quiet view of the cathedral where you whisper. And our responses are slow. We're very careful. We're very careful. And we read scriptures, and there is a place for the sacred, or I should say the reverent and the quiet, that can be very meaningful worship. And there are places in Scripture, but there are many, many, many places where God calls us to raise a noise, to lift up His name, to clash the cymbals in praise of Him, to play the guitars, the stringed instruments, in honor of who we're finding our God to be. Why don't we? Why are we so reserved? Why are we so cautious? Some of it is church tradition. I know that. It's what we've been taught. But I want to get into two specific reasons that I've come to believe very much in why Christianity models in large part stepping out of these concerts and political scenes and sporting events into the cathedral where we're so quiet and reverent. And more than that, why our worship in so many places, and even here at Dulles, a lot of the time is so lifeless. I believe it all comes down to our view of God. I believe it all comes down to having a wrong view of God. We have a recognition problem. I think all of us are ready to respond. We have it in us. We've been at these events. We've acted like crazy people. It's in us to respond. And I'm not suggesting for a minute that we become crazy here at church. I'm not. That makes me feel a little uncomfortable in certain religious settings where people lose their minds and, where the focus becomes more on people than on God. You've seen these places. But I believe the bottom line is the reason that we're okay and content for our worship a lot of the times to be passive and reserved and lifeless is because we have a recognition problem. We have it in us to respond, but we don't see God for who He really is. Two things on this. First, I think some people struggle with whether God is egotistical. Why would God call us to worship Him? I'm asked that question often. Why would God, does He need our worship? Does our worship make Him bigger? Does our worship extend His godliness longer into the future? Does it make Him feel good about Himself? And the answer is no. No, our worship doesn't change God. He doesn't need it. He is God, with or without our worship. He calls us to worship Him because He knows that we need it. He knows how life was meant to properly function and operate. And a lot of times we find that our universe, if we're honest with ourselves, our universe is dictated by ourselves being in the center of our world. And our world works against us when we're in the middle. Your world works against you when you're in the middle, in the place that God was always intended to reside in. God doesn't need our worship. We need it. It's that place of transition when we step out of first and we allow God to take up first. And it's the moment where we're reminded that I really am second. I'm going to talk in a few weeks about how often God calls us to be third, where we love our neighbor as ourselves. 3 weeks from now, we're going to spend our morning on that. Worship is the act. It can be giving financially to a neighbor or someone in need. It can be sacrificing time on a weekend or a weeknight for the sake of someone else. It can be coming into church early at 6:45 or 7 to help set up or help make the service happen. So many of our people worship God that way. It can be giving sacrificially of your resources to God's work here at church. It can be singing a song with a certain level of energy